It's time for Dr. Rademaker's prescription for transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now listening to
Join Dr. Rademaker for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is Prescription for Your Transformation. Real people, real conversations, and real success. And last week was a great show because I had the privilege to be talking to you on my own. And the point of that was me just sharing, a lot of the wisdoms that I've acquired over the years, some of which, mind you, is from this amazing fellow that's joining me today. And so, fortunately, he didn't hear me regurgitate some of the wisdom he's given me, so hopefully it did him justice. But talking about justice, what is that really all about for us as humans? Oftentimes we talk about, giving ourselves permission to be human. And that's a key point. We have to have that love, we have to have that compassion for self, so that then allows us to appreciate the fact that there are other humans out there besides ourselves. And that's important because the truth is that whatever struggles that you're having, and last session or last show was really about getting ready for 2020, as we really focus on ourselves and how we can become the best version of ourselves, or how we can create that most amazing year to come in advance and figure out all the ways to get there, there's an important part that I did not share, and that is what we get to do for our fellow humans. Because as much as that we are struggling in this life ourselves, at least as far as our perception goes, as to how we are hurting or suffering or being in pain, the truth is, more than likely, we're doing a lot better than many others. And so the key is this: in our journey to become better humans, to have that life that we desire, there's also a part of us, that child within us, that needs help. And it's also up to us to ask for that help. And it's okay to ask for help. And the truth is, there are a lot of people out there that need our help and, quite frankly, are unable to ask. And so one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and I know my co-host today, and I'm going to make him my co-host today because what he has to share is vitally important. But what's important too is that we are able to help others in this world that are unable to ask, that are unable to get what it is that they need. In fact, some very basic needs, whether it's through horrific devastation of weather or earthquakes or things like that, it really doesn't matter. It happens. And the one thing that I've always been asked in the past, why do I do these things? And it was a very simple answer: because I can. I want to welcome Chad Cooper from the Chad Cooper Foundation, an amazing humanitarian, an inspiration for myself to do even more for other humans. And I want to thank you for joining me today on this really important show, because it's also part of getting ready for 2020. What is it that we can do as humans to be humanitarian? Chad, thank you.
Awesome, love it. Let's dive right in, because we are at the cusp. What do we have? Today's the
26th.
Yeah, I know. What is that? Like 6 days left in the year.
Right.
And so, what a perfect time frame to decide who you want to be and what impact you want to make. This isn't just like the end of a year. This is the end of a decade. What have you done in the last decade? Because the next one, and I never thought I'd actually make the next decade. The next one is 6 days away. And so, are you going to make it all about you? Or are you going to make it about you and others? So, where do you want to go today? I'll try to be more serious, but I'll fail miserably.
Well, we know that. And Robin, thank you for joining me today, because maybe you'll help me contain Chad, because you were in stitches last time. I was in stitches last time and barely could contain myself. And
You already are like, I gotta get this stuff because we're at a deadline. And Rob and I were just cracking up like, then I'm sad now. So she needs to be in here because like simmer down. Now I'm just sad. So,
well, no, she's here, but her image isn't. She has just decided that she would just be an incredible distraction for everyone if we saw her
Stop
alive.
it.
Right?
she's dealing with the hellacious freezing temperatures of 68 degrees in Arizona. I mean, it is unbearable. They're looking for snow shovels. I mean, they're having to wear long sleeve shirts, Bart. So let's have some empathy.
Hey, Robin, do you have a mute button for him, or is that me?
You have to mute him, Doc. It's on your end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't pop him in the ribs like you did last time when he was sitting there.
Oh, that's right. So tell us something, and I appreciate the humor because, one thing I think that happens to a lot of us is that we really do take ourselves too seriously. And in that seriousness, we kind of lose perspective of what's really important in this world. And one of the things, that spiritual side within us is being able to contribute. And so many of us are kind of in that survival mode, or maybe, it's just that stability mode where we're barely making it in this life and no time for anybody else. But the fact of the matter is that when we have time for others, that kind of tells our brain that, we have more than plenty of time for ourselves.
Yeah, so one of the ways that I've done that is by serving and giving back. And so I actually just stepped down. I've been on 13 boards all at one time at one stage of my life. I was down to 2 and was the founding, co-founding member of, one of the founding board members of the House of Healing Foundation, where we do work in Guatemala. And I just stepped down from that board earlier this month to hand the reins over to an expanded board, a younger, more youthful, more energized, take it to another level. And really proud of the work that we've done there. As a result of doing all of those, I found that I needed to create my own foundation as well, the Chad E. Cooper Foundation. And you can see that on my website, chadecooper.com/foundation. We have 4 causes in there. And the point with those in that, really, by the way, am I calling you Bart or Dr. Rademaker? Which do you do?
Well,
like,
I've never heard
honest?
you call me Dr. Rademaker, so I guess
know.
we're stuck with Bart.
Well, but it's like, I got to be professional or something like that.
Well, it says it right there. I mean, Dr. Rademaker, see that?
So, that's, no.
Or your prescription.
Glasses are the problem. Hold on.
You got to get a better prescription.
I don't even know whose glasses these are. They just look good.
No, he's going to expect you to call him Dr. Rad if you're not careful.
There you go. Exactly. So here's the thing. We can look at Viktor Frankl. And if you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning, it's an amazing book. We can look at Nelson Mandela. We can look at Gandhi. And we can look at even Winston Churchill. And they face some serious challenges, some serious battles in life. But they had to find a sense of humor, a sense of humanity in the midst of heavy human condition, I think, in order to be able to surmount those challenges. And so one of the things that I've recently brought in under the umbrella of my foundation is a just amazing group of guys called the Goodness Tour. And what we do, and it will really touch the heartstrings of Viktor Frankl, is we go into disaster zones. So the most recent being Hurricane Dorian. And it was literally at my doorstep, like looking out the window, see this black wall. And personally, I think it is a number of factors of just incredibly just wise people from around the world that knew, and I think it was the ability to just kind of stop it. Unfortunately, it stopped over the Bahamas and devastated the Bahamas. And so here's the thing about our foundation in this aspect. So many, when there's a disaster, go in and they provide Maslow's 3 things, right? Food, water, and shelter. those are the most common things. Katrina, when it devastated New Orleans, that's what went in. But if you listen to the stories and what changes the lives on top of that, Katrina was about the blues and the jazz of New Orleans, right? Restoring the hearts of the New Orleans people. In the Abacos, we went in, and I think you got some photos and some things, but what we do is very unique. We don't do any of those three. You're like, okay, so what's left? We go in and actually deal with the soul, the spirit. People that have lost literally everything. People that have lost entire family members. Mom, dad, brothers, sisters, nobody left, gone. Just taken out to sea, taken by the hurricane. I personally, Dr. Rademaker, I can't even imagine that level of trauma. So we do music and art, because the first step in healing is the need to emote. And you can do that so beautifully through music and art. And so that's what we do. We do 2-3 story murals. We go in and do music and literally creating songs in these devastated areas to restore the hearts. And read Nelson Mandela or Viktor Frankl, because that's the thing. You can have food, water, and shelter and die without having your soul. That's the last stand of the human condition. So that's where we go in and serve.
You know, that's just such an amazing approach to delivering the humanitarian aid. Like you mentioned, I mean, so many go out there to deliver all sorts of other things that are absolutely necessary, you know, for the physical well-being. But it truly is that additional part that oftentimes that we forget. And as you were talking, I was actually just sharing some of the pictures of that. But I did want to share a couple pictures of my own experience, and then go more deeply into, you know, what's really happening in the Bahamas. But actually, back in 2005, you had a tsunami that actually hit the Indonesia and the Sri Lanka peninsulas, as well as Thailand, and some pretty devastating things happened. And these are pictures of people that are affected by the tidal waves that are coming in, and then some of the devastation afterwards. And this is really no different than, you know, what did happen in the Bahamas. And so I was very fortunate to be able to go to Sri Lanka several months afterwards, after the devastation, to provide some help. And again, devastation is just incredible. I mean, in Sri Lanka alone, I think 10,000 people perished. And that's all within a matter of minutes. You know, people who at one moment were thinking everything was safe, and then the next, they were just gone. And then, you know, the final pictures here are showing me actually performing important surgeries for the people there in Sri Lanka. And so, you know, I wish I'd known you at that time, because I think an important aspect is, you know, how do we help people, you know, regain their hope for life, their hope for living. And a lot of that is tapping into that emotion, because as you know, as well as I do, in Maslow's hierarchy of existence, you know, after the physical needs are taken care of, then it's the emotions and the meaning. And that way we can just go further into, you know, relationships with others. But without that part, without that, you know, ability to tap into those emotions and elevate that spirit, so that there is hope, and so that not so much that we're looking for a silver lining, but again, that we can also begin to recreate lives. And in that recreation of lives, before we go back into about the Bahamas, because I do want to spend a little bit of time on that, I want to jump to what you actually have done over the last 10 years, I believe, in Guatemala. Because one thing that we really do take for granted is the fact that, you know, we live an incredible lifestyle in the United States. You know, not regardless, but almost regardless, you know, what your level of wealth is. I mean, by many standards, we live so much better than other people in the world. And what I noticed in Guatemala, for example, is that there are many widowed women or single women with children that really are having a very hard time just getting a step up in life, simply because they don't really have a home, or anything that can really call a home with a roof that's safe and secure for their own children, and where the children have to suffer because when it rains and then they get sick and everything else. So one thing we just take so much for granted is just having a roof over our head. Just share with us a little bit about your work in Guatemala, and then I'll share some of my experiences, joining you with that.
Yeah, so Guatemala I've been doing we've been down there for 27 years. We actually now have a compound, because you can't call it the other things that you would associate in the U.S. and you say compound and immediately you go to Waco, right? No, not that guy, not Jim Jones, for those that know good old Jim Jones and Kool-Aid. So we go down, and here's the thing. You go around the world, and if you actually want to create change, Rhonda, you can chime in on this. You have men, women, and children. If you actually want to invoke lasting change, get rid of the men and go work with the women and children. Because the men don't want to change. Look, we've been at the top of the totem pole for the most part around the world. And we don't want to give up our nice view at the mountaintop, right? So we work with widowed women with children, and we teach them skill sets. We give them a trade to earn money. Guatemala, sadly, is about 85% of the men are alcoholic, and then those that flee. And so what we do is we try to actually change the family legacy, change the family future to give them a future. And I've been down there leading teams for about 13 years, and we've been so successful that I was invited to go meet with the president of Guatemala. And so that started, mind you, you're like, oh my gosh, you get to do all these amazing things, and they are. But that started from one simple request, one simple thought, and that was for me to ask God, said, I want to go on a mission trip. And he said, great, you get to lead it. The team leader just quit. I went, whoa, that's not what I meant. So careful what you ask for. But it started with something incredibly small. But it also means that if you really want to make the impact, keep going back. But I don't know, Robin's somewhere in there. Can we bring her in? What does she think about working with women and children?
I love that idea because I myself am a widow, and I've been married and divorced a few times and became a single mom at a very young age. And the only man that ever made a difference in my son's life was the husband of mine that passed away. And I think it's incredible that you're doing that, because it takes a long time for a woman to feel empowered, especially when we're left with children and not knowing what direction to go in. If we don't have a college education and we have to start living our life and trying to figure out what do we do. So I think it's pretty amazing that you're empowering these women to take charge of their life. And not only does it make them feel good and give them some self-worth, but it's also showing their children that no matter what happens, you can pick yourself up and put yourself back in that game and just do what you got to do to make it in this world.
Yep.
And we don't have to do it alone, and that's the key. And that's when people really need to step up and do what's possible because they can. Sorry to interrupt you, Chad. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I wanted to, because some men out there may be triggered, right? We've got a lot of women empowerment today, and thank goodness it's long overdue. But here's the thing. This isn't gender specific. We know that men have been at the top of the hierarchy. But if you are whatever at the top, let me be clear. For the men that are out there that are a little bit peeved about me, okay, saying this, I'm not telling you to step down. And women, let me be abundantly clear. You do not have to tear down those at the top in order to step up, okay? As a former United States Marine, what we did is cohesively came together as a team. And when you do that, a leader will rise from it. What I'm not telling you to do, I'm not telling you to step down. What I'm telling you to do is step to the side and grab a partner and lead hand in hand. So our society's got it completely jacked up. Our so-called leaders in government today have no clue what leadership is. I watched the debates recently in making the point of, why do we have to tear each other down? And the guy said, because it's the democratic debate. I'm sorry, but that's not how it's done in the world-class militaries around the world. You step aside in side by side, you cohesively build. So if you want to make a change, understand those that are hungry for the change. Because when I went over to the Abacos in the Bahamas, they're like, are you going to be okay a couple of days? I'm like, please, I've been out in the field for months at a time in the Marine Corps. You're talking a couple of days of mosquitoes and being uncomfortable and probably a little, Montezuma.
Yeah, well, that was the gift you came home with, right?
Oh, yeah, I did too, every time. And it is a small price to pay for the impact that is available. But here's the thing, because I get uncomfortable for a few days, knowing I get to come home to a hot shower, warm bed, and 3 squares a day, well, let's face it, it's 5, okay? Maybe cut back on that a little. But because I know I get to come back to the luxury in the blessed country I live in, it is a small price to pay for the impact. And what it does is it reopens my heart.
Right.
That's a real man. That's a real woman, because that's the human condition, and it is not gender biased.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that experience in the Bahamas, by the way, because I think that's so relevant today, and without getting into any political debates here.
I'll get into that. You don't have to.
No. We're not doing that. So the key here is what I want to experience. We're getting a lot of. Do you hear that noise in the background?
No, man, those are just the voices in your own head.
No.
I usually fight in public not to acknowledge them.
So the thing is that I don't have this private studio where everything's just nice and posh, and I got a whole entire crew.
Doc, you will.
One day I will. Yeah, with your help,
The
Robin.
mass exodus in Arizona, it's freezing. They all left.
Besides that, Chad, it's 57, not 67.
Oh wow. We really feel bad for you. So but it's your fault. You chose to live there. So
they had to put on closed-toe shoes. They had to wear socks today.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable. I'm not freezing anymore, so I'm comfortable.
So we're going to the discomfort, right? And truly, I've been fortunate to have worked in the Bahamas for quite some time in regenerative medicine, doing some, advanced medicine there. Only to find out that there was so much devastation that unfortunately the clinic that I was working at had to shut down. But that's small in comparison to the devastation that all these people suffered. And so, what is some of the impacts that we actually have been able to make there? Because I think the amount of devastation, the severity, has been very much downplayed and very much not shared within the media. And I think it's important, and part of the reason for this show is to remind people that yes, there are many horrific things happening in the world, and yes, there is a way to help. We just have to be really smart.
Okay, so why has it been downplayed? Well, there's a lot of tropical islands. So one goes down, go to another one, right? So we don't want to be inconvenienced, so we just find somewhere else to go. And so it's out of global ease that we can find, a ton of other places that we can go to. So the other part of it is not all the Bahamas was devastated. Surprisingly, several islands were pretty much unscathed. But those that were, leveled them. And story after story of people sharing about holding it on somebody's hand and then literally being pulled out. It drops you to your knees. And to get to Marsh Harbor in the Abacos, you can't go there directly anymore. None of the airlines are going there directly. You have to go into Nassau, and then from Nassau over, and then from Marsh Harbor, you can take a boat over to Hopetown, where we're also at. And I will tell you, going there and seeing people who I personally, Dr. Rademaker, never in my life seen the apocalyptic devastation of what I saw. 30, 40 miles in, and there's boats in the middle of tree lines. And people are living in tents, in nothingness, in absolute. I mean, you think of the most horrific movie, that's real what's going on. So, how do I say this without it being political? It's not political, it's reality. Part of the reason it's not getting attention is because a lot of the devastation is there's inner turmoil between the native Bohemian people and the immigrants, between Haitian and Dominican, okay? And so there's some problems with when there's not enough resources. I don't care where you come from, there's going to be the challenges of trying to make it stretch. And that's where the divisions come in. And it cracks me up when I was in the military. You could look at a Navy guy or an Army guy and you're like, you guys suck, you're not as good as the Marine Corps. Go overseas and have another foreign person make fun of your Navy buddy, and you got his back, right? Because now I'm American. So it's amazing how labels can either unite us or divide us.
Right.
And so part of what's going on there is the division of labels, because when you're in survival, there's not enough to go around. And so when there's no transportation to go in, and there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no plumbing, there's nothing, who's going to go there to cover it? So it's popular to sweep in. But because we've been there since it happened, we've been there for several months now, we've had the Prime Minister, we've had national news coverage, 60 Minutes, I think the Today Show. And look, my foundation is not a big thing. And that's the point. It's just about go and do. So whether that's going to your soup kitchen and helping there, or a shelter, or going to overseas, go do something.
So let me expand on that as well, and because this was also very relevant in my past, and for me, fortunately, growing up in 5 different countries and seeing a lot of poverty and a lot of complete opposites in different countries, it gave me a deeper appreciation of what the reality in the world is all about. And interesting enough, in my second year of medicine, I was, I think, 20 years old. I had made a very, very clear decision about my future, and that was to offer a lot of humanitarian work throughout the world. But already then, I realized and recognized one of the challenges in that kind of work is that it is actually very political and self-serving, and it happens over and over and over again. And we keep on hearing, just look at the things that happen over Haiti. And so my decision at that time was to say, look, I want to be abundantly wealthy so I could just do my own things. But fast forward to the early 2000s, I think what was relevant was I was very disillusioned by all these do-gooders and doing the humanitarian work, and very much, very, very self-serving. And so I was very reluctant to go into that. And I think for many people, what is obvious is that there's so many limitations or barriers to do this kind of work, primarily because people are just really unaware of how to be able to do it and how safe they're going to be. But fortunately, I was dragged into it, not unlike you. I wasn't told to lead this humanitarian work to El Salvador, but the team was so dysfunctional that on my way out of Miami to El Salvador, I just took the reins over and took control over this. And very fortunate in that time that our group was actually recognized, and we actually received the nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. So for me, what that was, the meaning of that, what was very important was that I wasn't doing enough, because going to these countries, I got so much out of it that it like you said, it just absolutely opens the heart in a way that I never thought was possible, and gave me the determination to really continue this work. And so the point that I'm getting at is that so many people like myself previously just not aware of what's possible, not aware of the impact that not only that you have on others, but the impact that you have on yourself. And you being a person that is actively involved with people's transformation. So I'd like to get your perspective. What's that personal transformation? What's the beauty? What's the heart in all of that? And how does it really impact the magic that you get then to experience in your own life? Because I think that is something that so many just don't see. And I like to share that part with them, with others, because it may help people make that decision to be courageous enough and actually go to a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter and actually do some help.
So many things I could say, and I'm maybe will in a bit, but I'll take you back to the question of why. And for me, it stemmed from growing up in the most segregated city in the United States, and it may still be that way, and that is, out in the South, Detroit, Michigan. It's the most segregated city in the United States. Nobody crosses borders. And so I grew up in the countryside of no diversity. In fact, I remember in as late as high school, and this is in the 80s and 90s, people, early 90s, but primarily in the 80s, the first black kids coming to our school, and they burned a cross on their house, on their front yard. What does that have to do with charity? Well, that helped when I went into the Marine Corps, realizing it does not matter what your background is, what your gender is, what your ethnicity is. What matters is, brother, you got my back? Okay, I got yours. And so it opened me to a world of defining people, quality people, by their character. Period. And that allows me to be able to go in, and part of my motivation was, one, to be able to relate to and see the differences in this world that actually strengthen us. So I'm going to say selfishly, I could sit here and go, oh, it's going to make you feel so good, and all of the, you get to go serve and change lives. You want to know the truth? If you go in and do it once, will you make an impact? Yes. Will you transform lives? No, probably not. You got to stay involved. And for 13 years I've been involved in Guatemala to watch little kids become adults now that are not turning to alcoholism, that are able to take care of their families, and they have changed the course of their family's future. Why? Because I was a kid that grew up in cornfields, my high school was surrounded by cornfields, and I said, this isn't right. And I take my family, I got involved because I did not want my family to have that kind of environment. That's why I moved from Michigan to Florida. That's why I live in Florida. Because there's so much diversity here. It is a salad bowl. Everybody's together, and you decide that person's an asshole or that person's nice because of the way they behave.
Right.
Period. And when you get involved in doing that, going to your local soup kitchen, you get to see and witness the human condition of people struggling at the bottom as well as at the top. People who were CEOs that got messed up with drugs, lost entire families. You don't have to go overseas. But when you do go overseas, you also get to witness the human condition. And in that, you get to see the richness and the light that people can create in the midst of having nothing. And so my family started going with me and my son, and people would go, these people have nothing. How is it that they seem to be happier than us?
Mm-hmm.
I said, because they make the rules easy to win.
Right.
We seemingly have everything and are miserable. Why? Because you're making the rules too hard to win. Oh, Dr. Rademaker's got a newer model of his Ducati or his Bentley. What do you have? Let's see. Let's make you have so people can really hate you. What's the really fancy ones?
Oh, like a McLaren.
McLaren.
Right.
Look, I live in the land. I think I saw 3 McLarens today. Seriously, okay? That's where I live. And so I have to get out of this toxic environment to remind myself of what matters. And so that is about restoring and remembering. You and I went to New Zealand, and they said, I keep on hearing you people say, this is such a special place. No, it's not. This is what normal is.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people don't know what normal is because they live in such a toxic world, such a toxic environment. But when you take away everything, you actually get to see what really matters. And it comes down to, as simple as it is said, the number one commandment is love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Period.
So what's interesting is that...
I'm off my pulpit.
No, you're good. You know, one of the things that I've really defined for myself and my programs is reminding people to give themselves permission to be human. And so within the framework that we live in, as far as, you know, satisfying all these rules and regulations and obligations and images and identities, you know, it becomes very difficult for us to actually like ourselves. And, you know, one statement that one of my interviewees made to me one day, and that was, you know, what if you treated everybody else like you treat yourself? And like you beat yourself up? And you wouldn't have any friends. You wouldn't have any family anymore. And why? Is because, you know, we have all these rules, as you mentioned. And so what's interesting is this, and you know, an important part of this work is that natural innate compassion that we can have for our fellow human, but it has to remain really authentic. It can't be used you'd be like you're the vanguard of goodness by doing these things, and that's what I discovered so often with people in the past. And what put me off of doing this humanitarian work, I said, look, I said the same thing you said. I said, look, you know, don't go abroad and do all these sorts of things. Do it at home. You know, why go there? But the point that I'm getting at is that, as you mentioned, and there was the same thing that I discovered in Sri Lanka and as well as Salvador and Peru, and that is that these are humans that are doing with a lot less and seem to be a lot happier. In fact, in Sri Lanka, it was interesting. It was fascinating. You know, it was really like back to business within 2 months, 3 months. I mean, people weren't talking about the tidal wave and the devastation and all the buildings, you know, crushed. They were just living their lives like normal. And unlike, you know, when Katrina hit, you know, part of our country, and they're still struggling, was it 7 years later or something? And they're still having problems with that. And so what's relevant for me is that going to these countries and helping these people and having fun is realizing that, yes, we can do with a lot less. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves. And in that space, we can also be nicer humans to our fellow humans, regardless of their position in life, and not taking ourselves so seriously, so that we can actually have a more enjoyable lifestyle. I mean, besides the fact that, yes, we've got ambitions, we've got goals, and all these things, and certainly obligations that we have to meet, and at the same time, giving ourselves permission, because a lot of people are guides, because they have a lot less than us, and they're just doing fine.
You know, the flip side to that as well is we think that we're dealing with this like unique perspective or this unique problem called immigration in the United States. And by going overseas, what you see is it isn't unique. I'm over in the Bahamas, and there's this pastor that is complaining about all the illegal immigrants and how it's screwing up their ability to serve their own people. Guess what, friends? That's not the United States. And I heard one of the most profound statements that I would not hear probably here. And the guy, this was on the plane coming back from Marsh Harbor, and he goes, "May I offer maybe another perspective?" And this Bohemian says, well, sure, I'm all yours. He says, you don't have an immigration issue. Migration has been going on since the beginning of time. You have an immigration management problem. Migration has always been going on. People are going to go from shitholes to stability and hopefully success.
Right.
That's the dream. That's
Right.
trying to create better. Now, here's the thing. Here's an old gray-haired white guy making this claim saying, oh, it's easy for you to say. Except for the fact that you don't know, my wife is a family member of Native Americans, so is my son. And my mother is a first-generation immigrant that came over from another country. So am I the first generation, or does that make me second? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Don't let appearances and labels get in the way of the human condition,
Right.
of seeing what needs to be done. And don't let those labels and all of this get in the way of saying, oh, I don't have to break, or I don't have to follow the rules. There's a process that needs to be followed. And so it's not an either or, it's a yes and. So you can go overseas, you can do it in your backyard and serve others and say, as much as in a soup kitchen of, sorry, you gotta wait in line until it's your turn, okay? So stop villainizing people as you're this or you're that, and look at what's the struggle, what's the pain, why are they cutting, what is it that they're trying to communicate? And see if you can help with that. And so for us, that's just sitting down with orphans. That's sitting down with mothers and fathers that have lost every one of their children and just playing a song. And maybe for a half a day, their life's a little bit better. That's where it starts.
So what if 1% of the population of the United States spent 1% of their time every year doing the kind of work that you and I do? Would make a real difference. And you know, the immigration issue, and not again not to be political, I think the perspective is just so wrong, and I forget who actually brought it up and put it in the proper perspective. You know, if we just took care of, if we just allowed all the immigrants come, you know, into our country and just let it loose, that would only reflect perhaps 1% of the problem in this world. And quite frankly, for the most part, I mean, you hit it on the nail. People are migrating because they're seeing opportunities that are better somewhere else. But the point of the matter is that we have to go to the source of the problem and take care of the problem there, because I can guarantee you that 90% of the people would much rather stay in their own country if they could find the best livelihood for them as well. Because that's where their roots are. That's where the culture is. That's where, you know, they identify, you know, most well with. And I think what's sad, what I've seen in Europe, and me being a European, you know, I'm going to, you know, Venice, and, you know, I see this, like you said, this salad bowl of different cultures. And so where's the Italian culture? Whatever happened to that? Where is the beauty in us maintaining our heritage and not, you know, tearing it apart with the thought of, oh, we're just evolving? Well, no, that's not true. We're losing the essence of our origins, and I think that's key. And so my point is that we need to be doing more humanitarian work in other countries so that we can help them and support them so that they can get a leg up on life. And it's really not that difficult. Just 1% of your time, 1 week out of your time, 1% of your own wealth, and you can make a huge difference. And guess what? Overnight, we would solve perhaps most of the humanitarian problems in this world.
I can't agree more. And if you look through history, the things that have transcended over centuries, music, arts, right? And what does an artist do? Ooh, let me look at what you got. I really like that. I'm gonna apply that so they can preserve their culture, their unique style, and then add to it. It's a yes and. I mean, the reality is math came from the Arabic community, right? The abacus. So music, I'm not going to go around and be like, I only like classical music. That's who I am. No, I am eclectic of it all. Okay, I like it all. Why? Because I can draw from this, I can draw from that. And the thing that I've learned about going in and being a humanitarian, and oh, by the way, I don't really ever say this, I'm a fiscal conservative, people. No, I am not a Republican, I am not a Democrat, and I am not a socialist. I'm a fiscal conservative. And what that means is I can go to the other countries and bring that back. And what's unique is I can say once a Marine, always a Marine. But some of the things in the Marine Corps don't translate well in the civilian world. Some of them do. And so I can say I'm a Marine and have evolved to be much more. Yeah, maybe you're an American, maybe you're European or whatever. No, you're a human being. Go out and serve others, and you will be so enriched as a result. And so many people go into it. When you say that, people go into it thinking, I'm going to go out and make a change, I'm going to make a difference. And then they come back, and they're the ones that are actually the most impacted and changed.
I want to elaborate on this being a fiscal conservative because, there's so many very wealthy to-do celebrities that want to get rid of capitalism and all that kind of nonsense. There is such an argument as conscious capitalism, but that's another conversation. But the point of the matter is that being that fiscal conservative, being that person that earns well, that gives you the opportunity to, on your own, do the things that are going to help others. And what I find is that most of those fiscal conservatives like yourselves are the ones doing most of the work instead of telling other people what they need to do. And as you said, when you go out there and do this, you're the one that's changed the most. And that's absolutely true. Well, I don't know if it's absolutely true, but the truth is that, you're significantly changed. And again, it's that ability to relate to yourself, not to take yourself so seriously, have fun with life, find a greater meaning of what it is that you're doing, and then having that impact and realizing that you can, sponsor children in different countries, meet them, see them grow up, and my family has, I think, 2 kids or maybe 3 kids that we're sponsoring. And it's such a joy to see them grow up and know that you've just, with a little bit of effort, really dramatically changed their lives, and that has a ripple effect on so many others. And if we can just begin to focus more on how can we personally go out there and support, not just with money, but just with physical labor and just building this house and the work that you've done. Every year you go, you take 1 or 2 teams, you build 1 or 2 houses, within about a week. And it's amazing, to see the joy and exhilaration on these families that they now have a palace. You've created a palace which, quite frankly, is just 4 walls, a door, 2 windows, and a roof. And it's mind-boggling, but it's such a beautiful thing, and it elevates our spirit, when we get to do those things. And I'm actually looking forward to our next one.
Yeah. So here's the thing: how do you get started? People are inspired. They're like, oh, okay, you convinced me. You finally beat me down. Robin is even like, okay, once it warms up to like 60, all right, let's be real, right? Like what, 74? Then she'll be willing to go, okay, but how do I get started? Get started locally. But here's the thing. Maybe it's hard for you to step out and do it on your own. Maybe you're pissed. And if we actually look and map the map of consciousness, and we look at the energy factor from aggression of something's wrong, something needs to be changed, something needs to be done about it. We'll just call that aggression. To, I'm going to do something about it. We'll call that empowerment. The difference in that scale is 50 points out of 1,000. 50 out of 1,000. That's the difference between aggression and empowerment. So here's what my invite is for all of our friends here, Dr. Rademaker, is maybe it's really hard to do it on your own. Great. Get your family involved. You got kids? Get them involved. Because you'd be amazed when your little ones are watching. You're like, I'm being the example. I can't look like a schlep. I can't be weak. I got my kids watching me. I gotta be super dad or I gotta be super mom, right? Invite your friends. Invite your church, your community, your social group. Get others involved. Ask your best friend, and don't do it alone. Because we are not alone in this world. But if you try to do it alone, you're going to find a million excuses why you got something else. So fine, make it easy. Move from aggression to empowerment by asking and bringing others into it. Because then, when you're weak, they're going to lift you up. When they're weak, you're going to sense it, and you're going to lift them up. That's how you keep it going. Because by myself, there's no way I would have accomplished things that I sit back and I'm like, how in the heck have I done all that stuff?
Right.
Certainly wasn't by me alone. Not even close.
So as we're close to wrapping up, we only have a few more minutes. Just a few words about the work that both you are doing. And I know we're supposed to be going to Guatemala, like you mentioned, to talk to the president, see what we can do there. But I think an important part, in our world today, in this galaxy that we live in, and going through the equator in the galaxy, and energies are shifting, and the prophecies, of our indigenous tribes throughout the world, all coming to say the same things. In this country, the Toltecs in Mexico, saying that the ancient wisdoms need to come to the forefront. And you're doing some amazing work with the Waitaha out of New Zealand, the water bears. So just a few words about that, and so that people get a taste of what's coming up, at least for them if they wish to join us.
Oh, well, let's see. Guatemala's full up. That's in March that we have coming up. We are in the process of looking at, I think, the fall of 2020 to build a team to go back to what I would just say is an extraordinarily magnificent experience with, well, I let the cat out of the bag. Imagine being able to sit with people who've had their doors closed to the outside world since the 1600s. People that have only been allowed in, like the Dalai Lama, President Nelson Mandela. And imagine being able to sit with that level of wisdom. Now, when they sit with me, they bring a 2x4 and they have to hit me upside the head to get some things through. So they accommodate to whatever level you come in.
That's why you have me along, so I can reconstruct you. I get that.
Exactly. I got to have a doctor there to be able to kind of put it all back together. But if you had that opportunity, would you begin saving today in order to make that happen? Or are you going to wait until the opportunity lands on your feet and you go, I can't afford it. I can't take the time off. So you're about 6 days away from the new year. What are you doing to start slow, one pebble at a time, to be able to start saving, to be able to build a vacation, to be able to include those that need to be, tell your friend, hey, we're going on an extraordinary experience. Where do you want to go? Let's plan it. Let's make it possible. Because it may take you 9 months to do it. And you know what? If you want to start small, guess what? We're bringing them for the first time to the United States in the summer of 2020. So we're going to hit 5 states. California, is that still a state? I think so.
I think so.
Arizona, so guess what, Robin? It better be warm, or we're just going to skip you, okay? Just saying. Putting it out there. New Mexico, Ohio, which, I mean, if you haven't been to exotic Ohio, people, you are not missing out. But we're going to make it special. And then, of course, my home state here in Florida. So we've got huge opportunities. Dr. Rademaker will be part of all of those to let you know. Just start.
And how do they find you? What website?
ChadECooper.com/foundation, or you can email me at foundation@ChadECooper.com. If you do email me right away, just understand I'm heading out the door for London, because my son's performing in the London New Year's Day parade, okay? So a little proud moment there for me. that I'm super excited about. So if you do, I'm going to ignore you for about a week, and then I'll be back in touch.
Well, go say hello to the Queen for me, okay?
Yes. Roy, we're going to have some tea and crumpets.
There you go. They only request the important people in this world, and you'll be one of them. So, Chad and Robin, thank you so much for today. Robin, thank you for sharing, your experience, your emotions with us, because I think it bespeaks to many people out there. And I wish I had a little more time to have you chime in. But I think next week you and I are on, right?
Sure, that's what you want.
Yeah, let's do that, and then let's talk a little bit more about follow up on this talk. And I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker. This is your prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success. And it's all about being human and humanitarian. And the best part of preparing for 2020 is, where does that fit in for you? Because truly, it will open up the magic of your heart to the world, and most importantly, to yourself. So once again, thank you, and till next week.
It's time for Dr. Rademaker's prescription for transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now